Hey guys, it's Brianna, and you know the drill. Another month gone by, and we have to talk about what I read last month. Also, make sure you leave me a comment below and let me know what you read in the month of March. The first book that I read in March was Doctor Sleep, which is the book that follows The Shining. So if you've read The Shining, you've probably heard of this one as well. This book was published in 2013 and it is 531 pages long. And here's the summary. Years ago, the haunting of the Overlook Hotel nearly broke young Dan Torrance's sanity as his paranormal gift known as The Shining opened a door straight to hell. And even though Dan is all grown up, the ghosts of the Overlook and his father's legacy of alcoholism and violence kept him drifting aimlessly for most of his life. Now, Dan has finally found some order in the chaos by working in a local hospice, earning the nickname Dr. Sleep by secretly using his special abilities to comfort the dying and prepare them for the afterlife. But when he unexpectedly meets 12-year-old Abra Stone, who possesses an even more powerful manifestation of the Shining, the two find their lives in sudden jeopardy at the hands of the ageless and murderous nomadic tribe known as the True Knot, reigniting Dan's own demons and summoning him to battle for this young girl's soul and survival. I really enjoyed this book. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. It is definitely quintessential Stephen King, and I felt like it was a really, really great book to follow The Shining, and I don't think it could have been done much better. The only things that I think I didn't like were in the very beginning. It took me a little bit longer than I would have liked to kind of get hooked. But once I did, I started flying through it, so just know that if you read this, the beginning's a little bit slower. The only other thing that I didn't love was that, as you know if you've read Stephen King before, he tends to have lots and lots of characters in his book. And with this book, there were a lot of characters that had multiple names. So they had their actual names and then nicknames that they went by. And that kind of confused me, so I would say that's the only other thing I didn't like, is that I was kind of confused by like who the characters were, because they were oftentimes being named by 2 different names. I also liked that this book was similar to The Shining in that it had an adult's perspective and a child's perspective. So in The Shining, Dan Torrance is the child, and then obviously in this book he's grown up, but they introduce a new child to kind of take that, childlike mindset place in the novel. So I liked that a lot. It was also interesting to see what Dan was able to do with his quote-unquote powers as an adult, and also the, alcoholism that they introduced in the first book was brought into this book, and it was kind of like him trying everything he could not to be like his father, and he kind of ends up being just like his father. So I definitely liked that they weaved a lot of, the themes and the storyline from the first book into this book, and it didn't feel like it was just out of left field. I would obviously recommend this to those of you who have read The Shining. If you liked The Shining, you'll definitely like this one. The next book that I read was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I have not read any books by Taylor Jenkins Reid prior to this one. Unfortunately, I spilled some water on my book, so it got a little crinkly, which was sad, because I really, really liked this one. I actually think this was my favorite book that I read this month. This was published in 2017, and it is 385 pages long. And here's the description. Reclusive Hollywood icon Evelyn Hugo is finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. But when she chooses unknown magazine reporter Monique Grant to write her story, no one is more astounded than Monique herself. Determined to use this opportunity to jumpstart her career, Monique listens in fascination. From making her way to Los Angeles in the 50s to leaving show business in the 80s, and of course the 7 husbands along the way, Evelyn unspools a tale of ruthless ambition, unexpected friendship, and a great forbidden love. But as Evelyn's story nears its conclusion, it becomes clear that her life intersects with Monique's own in tragic and irreversible ways. Like I said, I really, really loved this book. I think it's my favorite book that I read this month. 5 stars, hands down. I think my favorite thing about this book was honestly the way it was formatted. as the title says, it is about Evelyn Hugo, and more specifically, the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And the book is broken up by the 7 different husbands. And at first, I was like, oh, is this just like a story about this woman's 7 husbands? But that just provides, the framework for a much more in-depth novel surrounding a very complex character, and there's so much more to her than just her 7 husbands, which I think is kind of the whole point of the book. So I really liked the way that it was broken up. There's also like a bit of a twist ending that I didn't expect. So if you like a story with a little bit of mystery and a twist ending, definitely check this one out. I think by the end of the book, I had a really good grasp on who Evelyn Hugo is as a character, and same for Monique Grant, who is the woman who is writing her story. Overall, I'd pretty much recommend this to anyone, but especially people who like stories that have very complex characters, stories that have a unique structure, and also stories that cover topics of sexuality and also fame, because, the whole book is about how she's like super famous. So if you're interested in fame as a topic, I would check this one out. And last but certainly not least, the 3rd book I read this month is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. If you've watched some of my past book review videos, you may know that this is not the first book I've read by her, it's actually the 3rd. And I liked the other 2 that I read, so I figured I would check this one out, and I actually think this might be my favorite of the 3. It is 361 pages, it was published in 2018, and I believe this is her debut novel. Let me read you the description. Xiomara Batista feels unheard and unable to hide in her Harlem neighborhood, but secretly she pours her dreams and frustrations onto the pages of her notebook like prayers. When she is invited to join her school's slam poetry club, Xiomara doesn't know how she could ever attend without her religious mommy finding out. But even so, in the face of a world that may not want to hear her, she refuses to be silent. I didn't really know what to expect from this book, but I really, really enjoyed it. The first thing that surprised me was, if you take a look at the inside, you will see that it is actually written like it's poetry. So, not all of the pages look the same. However, it does read like a normal story. It does have like more of a poetic style to it, but it reads like a normal novel. However, the structure of it kind of, gets you into the mindset that this girl is a poet. So I liked that a lot. And it also means that you will fly through the 300 plus pages in this book, because the majority of these pages I don't even think have like 100 words on them or something like that. So I was able to read this in like 2 days. Realistically, I probably, if I wanted to, could have read it in a few hours. I think my favorite things about this book were that the main character is really, really likable, and you find yourself rooting for her a lot. And I also liked that the more minor characters weren't superficial. They, had facets to their personality that you learned about throughout the book without it feeling forced. And I liked that a lot, because I find that sometimes authors will get too deep with the main character, but then all of the people surrounding them kind of feel like these superficial individuals that could have been fleshed out more as characters. So I appreciated the well-rounded characters in this book. Again, I would probably recommend this to anyone, but I would definitely say if you're interested in coming-of-age stories, and also stories that center around, self-confidence, and also if you're interested in stories that have to do with religion and, growing up in a religious household, because the entire book basically is her grappling with, her parents' expectations for her, and whether or not she, wants to dedicate herself to the church and all this stuff. So check this one out. I loved it a lot, and it was such a super easy read because the pages have so few words on them. And that's everything I read this month. I will show you what I'm reading now. The Institute by Stephen King. I've been meaning to pick this one up for a while and I finally did. So this is what I'm reading now, and I will let you know what I think of it in the next book review video. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said at the beginning, leave me a comment below and let me know what you've read recently, or if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, let me know your thoughts on them as well. And make sure you like the video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so that you get notified every time I post a new video. Bye.